Welcome back to the Outdoor Adventures Hunting Podcast right here on Brownfield Ag News. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Brent Barnett, and our guest on this week's show is Cody Butler from Nebraska. Cody, how you doing here today?
I'm doing good. Finally getting over some sickness that went through our house. Man, we were down for about 10 days, but feeling better the last couple days here and ready to talk with you here.
Yeah, glad you're on the mend and feeling better. It does feel like some stuff has been going around, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
Um,
I think a lot of people that have had some crazy things this year, it seems like.
I tell you what, it's been tough, especially whenever you have the littles running around as well.
That's for sure.
Yep, it's a never-ending battle. Well, hey, Cody, as we get started, we have a cool story we want you to tell today about this giant triple drop tine buck that you harvested in Kansas this past season with
Mhm.
traditional equipment, a recurve bow. But first, you might tell the listeners more about yourself and your background in hunting and how you got started.
Okay, yeah. Started hunting at a young age. Actually, I think turkey hunting was kind of the first thing I tried. Sitting on my grandpa's lap, shot my first turkey, and then moved on to deer with my dad, and just grew up in a hunting family. Both grandparents and my dad hunted. Pretty much all I did growing up, and just fell in love with it, and decided at some point that I wanted to make it a career, and started a media company called Cottonwood Creative, and kind of did my own kind of for fun online show for a while when I was younger, and started that media company. And I've been able to work with a ton of awesome companies over the years, mostly in the archery side of things. And then back in 2018, I guess it was, got the opportunity to work full time for Henry Repeating Arms, and I'm kind of the head of their video and photography marketing section now. And it's been a huge blessing, great company. And this past fall, actually ended up sharing some of my archery footage with Bill Winke there at Iowa. So
Very cool. Well, congratulations on your path through your career here in the outdoors. Let's get to this story of this awesome buck that you were able to take this past season. I'll just kind of let you take the discussion here and just kind of go into all the details of how this all came together.
all right, so I guess kind of starts back about 9 years ago. My grandfather passed away, and he was the guy that got me my first turkey and kind of got me into that and everything. And he had an old bear archery takedown recurve that was always hanging on the wall in his basement, and I remember seeing that when I went over to his house and stuff, and always thought that was really cool. And when he passed away, I was fortunate enough to inherit that, and I didn't really want to shoot it or hurt it. He took such good care of things. I mean, it's dang near new, and ended up kind of taking some interest in it here the last couple of years, and actually reached out to Bear Archery to see what year it was. And we come to the conclusion that it's either a 1969 or a 1970, which is the first year that Bear Archery made the Takedown series. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I actually got some different limbs for it, and started shooting it. Kind of ended up falling in love with the traditional thing. Did a ton of online research, learned how to tune them, and bear shaft tune, and just all sorts of different things that goes into it, and just kind of fell in love with it. And next thing I really wasn't putting my bow hunting stuff anywhere as far as content. I was still kind of filming, just for fun. And Bill Winke and I got to talking, and ended up sharing my footage with him. And then obviously they're sponsored by Hoyt, and got my hands on a Hoyt Satori, which I've always heard really good things about those bows, and got it all tuned up. And we actually did a tuning series with that bow on Bill's channel on their setup series, and really enjoyed shooting the bow. Got really familiar with it, and just it really kind of made me fall in love with the traditional thing even more, I guess. And I live in Nebraska around the Kansas state line here, and we've got farms in both states, and got the trail cameras out. And late summer, got a picture of this deer that ended up taking here later in the fall. And it was between him and two other bucks. We had a really really good year this year. Had a lot of really good bucks on camera. At one point, I think we had 21 different bucks that were mature enough. We don't usually harvest anything under 5 years old. And between all of our farms, we had like 21 different bucks to go after this year. Not all high scoring deer, but a lot of mature deer this year. And we were pretty excited going into the season. And I have never even had pictures of a deer with triple drop tines. I've killed a couple. I killed a double drop tine deer like 3-4 years ago. And anyway, this deer showed up, ended up, it's going to be my number one deer I'm going to go after. And I wanted to be kind of smart with him. And actually only hunted the deer 2 times and shot him on the second time out of the same stand. And I just basically surrounded his core area on a small 160-acre property we had there with trail cameras, and really tried to figure out exactly where he was going. He was actually kind of living in a small pocket in the back corner of this cornfield and coming through the corn, and he was coming in and then getting a drink in the early season at a pond there. So I hung a couple stands around that pond, and like I said, just kind of started monitoring the trail cameras, and we got the weather, and just kind of had that feeling, I guess, that it was going to happen. Had a big cold front move in, one of the first ones there in October, and hunted him one night and actually saw him, but he didn't come in. And I wasn't able to get footage of him. And then I think maybe 4 or 5 days later, went back in there with a little different wind and sat in a stand that I really wanted to get in. And he ended up coming in perfect. Worked a couple scrapes off to my left and came in to about 23 yards and made a perfect heart shot. And he went, I think, 35, 40 yards and piled up. So it was pretty crazy deal. And little did I mean, I just wanted to try to get a mature deer, on my first year with traditional equipment. Had no expectations of killing a deer like this. And the good Lord just made it all come together, and truly blessed to be able to put something like this down for sure.
I watched that video, Cody, and I remember my initial reaction was, my goodness, what a shot you were able to make on that buck. I mean, absolutely perfect. Um, Going through that shot process, were you nervous at all on a buck of this caliber, or is it just kind of like autopilot at that point?
You know, I've been fortunate enough to take several really good deer over the years. My dad and I really manage our farms well, and I've been fortunate enough to put my eyes on some pretty big deer over the years. So definitely was nervous, but I think more nervous that I had a recurve in my hand than the size of the deer, I guess. Just was trying to go through my shot process, get my anchor in right, and know the yardage and all that. And um, funny thing, you probably can't tell in the video, but I have a little, I don't know what they call them, but it's a little rubber thing that hooks onto the arrow, so that when, on a traditional bow, when the arrow's sitting on the shelf, I shoot off the shelf. If the wind blows or something like that, that arrow could fall off the shelf. There's nothing to hold it there. So they make these little adapters that you can kind of hook onto the arrow. Well, the idea behind them is when you start to draw, those pop off, and then you can go. Well, it was cold enough that day. I guess that rubber had gotten cold. And when I went to draw back, it actually wasn't popping off at first. And so it was actually trying to pull my nock off the string. And if you look real close at the video, you can actually see me stop and put my nock back on the string and then pop that off. So that was pretty nerve wracking. I'm thinking, man, here's my opportunity, and something silly like that's going to happen and he's going to get away. But I kind of had a panic moment there for a second, but got it all figured out, and come to full draw and had a second to calm down and just, focused on that spot and let her rip. And that's where it hit.
Me personally, I have very limited experience shooting traditional. Not very much at all, but just might talk with the listeners a little bit about your comfortableness as far as distance. You said this deer was at like, would you say 22 or 23 yards away?
23 yards. Yep.
Is that within your comfortable range? What's that all look like?
Yeah. So I practiced a ton at further distances just to be comfortable. I really wanted something between that 15 and 20 yard range is where I really, wanted to be. Um, but 25 I was pretty comfortable with, and 30 I was comfortable with, but didn't want to take that shot unless the situation was perfect. I mean, a lot can happen as far as, these arrows are moving a lot slower than a compound. So, a 30-yard shot, I would say the equivalent of that arrow getting there would maybe be like taking a 45 or 50-yard shot with a compound. A lot can happen, in that distance from the bow going off, that, the deer hearing it. So I felt pretty comfortable with the 23-yard shot for sure. And I tried really hard to shoot instinctively, and I couldn't do it very good. I'm right-handed, but I'm left eye dominant. So for me to shoot both eyes open instinctive, it just didn't feel right to me ever. So I ended up did a lot of research, and I ended up coming up with a fixed crawl to where I shoot three fingers under, and that fixed crawl is basically, probably an inch below my nocking point is where I actually hook my fingers. And then that gives me a point on distance of 25 yards. And what that means is I'm basically using the tip of my arrow as a pin, like on a compound bow. So at 25 yards, I can put basically the end of my arrow where I want it to go, and that's my point on. And then at 20 yards, I could put basically on the brisket, like low heart area, and that would hit perfect at 20. And then at 30, I could aim basically backstrap area, kind of spine area, and it would drop right in there. So I kind of almost had a 3-pin system, but with, traditional equipment. And once you start shooting it enough, it's kind of just second nature. You're not even really looking at the arrow. It's kind of just in your peripheral. You're more looking at what you want to hit. And once you kind of see that, the point of that arrow in your peripheral, you kind of know where you need to be and make a good shot.
Really interesting stuff there. I've never even heard of that. So are there like tutorials out there people can watch on this style?
Yeah, yep. I did a ton of research and went to the school of YouTube, I guess. I did a lot of research on that, read a lot of articles. I think there's a channel called The Push Archery. They're all traditional. I watched a bunch of stuff on there. That's actually kind of where I came up with the fixed crawl idea. And actually, I have a buddy that started traditional bow hunting, gosh, maybe 3 years ago or so, and he went to that system. And there's some controversy about it. You've got the diehard traditional guys that are like, oh, that's not, really traditional archery. They think you got to shoot instinctive. But I guess in my eyes, I really wanted to kill a deer with traditional equipment, and I would not have felt comfortable going out and trying to harvest a deer shooting completely instinctive. And even the guys that say they shoot completely instinctive are probably using some sort of aiming method a little bit, whether they know it or not. It's pretty hard to do things, especially at distance, completely instinctive. So um, it worked for me. There's a lot of guys out there that do it, and to me, it just gave me the confidence to put the arrow where it needed to go and make a clean, ethical kill, which means the most to me.
The way I've kind of tried it in the past, and again, no expert here by any means. I'm only comfortable up to about 12 yards with a
Yep.
recurve right now, right? So,
Yep.
and that's with a big bale, with plenty of room to spare. But
Yeah.
I kind of like what you said. I definitely have the three fingers underneath, and
Mm-hmm.
my anchor, I bring it up and just rest it right under my chin right here, and bring the string up to my nose
Yep.
and do the slight lean to the side. But I guess the way I have tried to aim before, at least it's kind of worked out for me on my left hand on the grip. I kind of have my index finger pointing where I want
Mm-hmm.
to go. And I just
Yep.
kind of base it off that as
Yep.
far as the height. And then I kind of line up looking down the arrow shaft from up above.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's a right style of doing things or what.
I mean, honestly, you got to do what's comfortable for you. What I really liked about the fixed crawl is because your three fingers are even further below that nocking point. What it does is, so I come back and I have a tooth, my canine tooth here sticks out just ever so slightly more than my other ones, and I can feel that. So when I come to full draw, my index finger actually touches that tooth, so it's a consistent anchor every single time. And that said, my anchor's here. So with that crawl being low, my arrow is actually clear up here by my eye. So what that allows me to do is actually look directly down that arrow.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can really get your point on distance how you want it that way. You can really see, you can actually, get to the point where you can see if you're kind of torquing left or right. And if you can, get it just right, cant the bow slightly, you can really get that arrow directly under your eye to where you're looking right down it, to where you shouldn't ever have an issue, with shooting left or shooting right. As long as your bow's tuned, you're really just looking right down that arrow shaft, know exactly where it's going.
How long did you practice, Cody, before you became comfortable enough to go hunting?
Um, I really started, let's see, kind of the late fall, early winter of 2022. Kind of when I started, really worked hard at it. In the spring of 23, actually did a little turkey hunting. I actually shot a turkey with my grandpa's old bear, and I lost it. A crazy deal. Thought made what I thought was a great shot on the ground, no blind at 12 yards. Really cool hunt. And I searched for that turkey for like 4 hours and couldn't find it. And there was three toms in that area where I was at. Just kind of a small group of birds there. There's three toms, I think six hens. And like 4 or 5 days later, I went down there and they were out in the field and there's three toms there still. So the only thing I can think of, anybody who's ever turkey hunted with a bow knows if you shoot slightly low, usually you just get breast meat and that bird is going to live. And I'm guessing I was just a little bit lower than what I thought I was, and the bird ended up living. But um, so then, yeah, I ended up, going through the turkey season. Didn't end up getting a turkey with the bow, but practiced a ton through the summer and early fall. And man, by the time deer season rolled around, I was feeling pretty confident that if I could get something 25 yards and in, I was going to have a good chance.
Man, congratulations. Before we go, so a buck like this, triple drop, what'd your family think? I bet they were proud.
Yeah, they were pretty darn excited. Called my wife. She was the first one I call. Her and my dad are the first ones I always call, and called her. And I don't know, you can probably hear her on the phone call in the video. She was super excited, and kids are always excited to come out and see them. And my wife loves to hunt too. She's killed a couple of great deer with a bow and a really good one with a muzzleloader. And we've got two young kids at home. We got a 4 year old and an 18-month-old. So she's kind of taken the back seat to hunting, I guess, a little bit the last few years here. We've tried to get her out some, but I hope to get her out and get her another one soon. But my dad's always super excited. My dad's always been my biggest fan. He came right away. He was hunting that night too, and I called him, and he climbed right down out of his stand and drove. Gosh, the farm he was at, he drove had probably drive 30 miles to get to where I was. So he hauled over there and helped me load it and helped me kind of film the recovery a little bit because I was by myself, and it was just pretty surreal. I just walking up on a deer like that. He's my second largest deer ever with a bow, and my third largest deer ever. Period. Probably I'll be hard pressed to probably ever kill one again this big with a recurve. I actually have him right here.
Yeah.
I was supposed to take him to my cousin. My cousin does my taxidermy, but I was supposed to take him over there this Friday, but I decided to keep him here. But I don't know if you can see
Look
him
at
good
that.
there. But this is that triple drop side. He's actually got
That's
a
insane.
on that side too. So this side ended up scoring, I think, 91 or 92 inches by itself. I can't remember exactly what this side, but he ended up gross scoring 181 and some change.
Wow.
So
Cody, everyone, I say everyone, all pretty much any hunter you talk to will always say, "Oh, someday I dream of seeing a drop-tine buck." Do you ever think you'd have a triple drop-tine deer?
you know, no, probably no. We have some genetics of drop tines. Like I said in the past, I've taken a couple drop tines in my life. 3 4 years ago, I shot a big mainframe 8 pointer, had 14-inch G2s, and he had 5-inch drops on both sides, so a double drop tine. Just an awesome deer. And then, gosh, clear back in 2012, I shot a deer that had a single drop tine. Um, Big mainframe 8 with a bunch of stickers and a drop. But never did I think I'd have something, I guess, quite like this. That side is just unreal. I mean, having a 90 some inch side on one side is pretty incredible. If you match sides, he's over 200 inches. So, um, pretty darn cool.
Well, congratulations again, and thanks a lot for taking some time to hop on our show and tell your story.
Not a problem. I appreciate you having me.
Again, that's Cody Butler from Nebraska, and thanks a lot for joining us here this week on another episode of Outdoor Adventures. You can catch our episodes each week on YouTube and a radio version on the Agra America app. For Outdoor Adventures, I'm Brent Barnett.